I think that AI being in our lives means that we can focus more on the strategic matters. The times where we just don't have the bandwidth to take the time to focus on those really important matters to enable the business to grow means that we have a bit more space to do that.
You're listening to The Influencers Digital Transformation, a Hogan Lovells podcast exploring how technology is reshaping industries, regulation, and the practice of law. Each episode features conversations with leaders driving change, offering insights to help you navigate innovation with confidence. This is Season 4.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Influencers, our podcast conversation on digital transformation and law. I'm Leo von Gerlach, and with me today is Lucy Tyrrell. Lucy is General Counsel of the legal technology firm Wordsmith AI. Wordsmith AI provides, among many other technology solutions, AI-powered, secure workspaces for legal teams. That's obviously extremely exciting. Lucy, great to have you.
Thanks, Leo. It's great to be here.
Lucy, you assumed the role of General Counsel for Wordsmith AI some time ago. What have been your key priorities since stepping into this role?
Yeah, it's funny, actually. Some time, I think that's right for an AI business. I think in an ordinary business, I would say I haven't been in the role too long, but for our point of view, I've been here for a little while. And so key priorities, when I first stepped into the role, I broke those down into sort of three areas. One was to prioritize the risks to enable us to scale. I partnered closely with the business to understand the technology and the areas of business. And then thirdly, to build the scalable framework to allow us to be an AI native company going forward. So the first thing was looking at risk and triaging that's coming in. I was the first legal hire at Wordsmith, so some GCs will empathize with me on that. But just looking at critical areas, so getting familiar with the cap table, IP ownership, where data's going, customer contracts, data licensing, privacy policies, etc. Identifying any risks and things that needed to be dealt with immediately. But then nice to have some things that I'd like to do in the future, but particularly enabling our team to scale. And it would be hypocritical of me not to set up our company in an AI native way. So that means that we have to implement workflows so that contract reviews don't always come to me, so that we've got policies in place that can just be queried within the tool. And generally the usual scaling features, so making sure that we have a plan, what we're going to do and how we're going to grow with the business. So those are my main priorities, but lots of them are still ongoing.
Wow. I would love to speak with you further about scaling a AI native company, but just for the benefit of our listeners, mainly of them from legal departments, let's perhaps shift the focus a little bit on the product and service side, the solution Wordsmith AI offers. And I understand among them is a very comprehensive platform tailored for legal in-house teams. Can you tell us something about what that product is, what it offers, and what makes it stand out?
As you said, we're built for primarily for in-house lawyers, although we do work with law firms as well. But we look very closely at the pain points for in-house lawyers. And then we've gone deep into solving those problems. So firstly, we look at contract volume and we look at bottlenecks. So we're conscious that in-house teams are flooded with contracts, vendor contracts, NDAs, DPAs, SaaS agreements, and more complex bespoke agreements. So we've tried to look at those and build Wordsmith First Pass. So that allows legal teams to kind of automate that initial contract review using either our own playbooks, because we're conscious that not everybody has loads of different playbooks for each type of agreement, but also allows the team to actually customize their playbook. And that's mapped to their risk profile. So they can review those directly in Wordsmith. Also, they integrate with Word, but the business can input contracts via email and also through Slack. So we really try to enable legal to be someone that supercharges the business and ensure that the team is able to access Wordsmith and also self-serve. So they can send in their own contract, for example, and that will come back fully marked up to the business who don't need a license if they want to be able to do that. But legal controls the process because they'll set the playbooks. They have a dashboard so they can see everything. So legal are very much in the driving seat, but it's to take away the churn of the contracts. The second area or another pain point would be capacity constraints. More and more people coming under pressure to do more with less. We often hear that phrase in-house teams. And then that's regular questions on things that you've answered before, documents you've signed, processes, for example, or even just latest changes in law that might impact product development, for example. And so we have built the product so that it sits as an interface between legal and the business. And that allows the business to almost self-serve on certain things. So the legal team can connect knowledge bases and ring fence those. I'm thinking things like delegation of authority or signed transaction documents. You can put them in a specific area and then the business can self-serve and they can go and ask questions of those knowledge bases and then get responses back. And again, that can either go directly to the business if it's a straightforward question, what's our company number, for example, or if it's a bit more complicated, it can go via the legal team. So we'll set up workspaces so that it will query the documents. The lawyer can get the citation to go straight to the source because we know that that's fundamental to be able to verify the response. And then they can either improve, assign, or approve the answer that then goes back to the business. So legal being in that driving seat. And we find that that's helpful for kind of knowledge management, institutional memory, and consistency across the legal team to ensure that responses have been vetted, the team are getting quick responses. It means that the business can get responses in, a matter of seconds or minutes, hours, if you want to check it first. So those are the key components. We also have a suite of productivity tools just for everyday work, reviewing emails, summarizing documents, redacting documents, doing translations, document comparisons, things that we're probably already familiar with doing, but just with AI overlaid on top of that.
So in the field of document and contract management, I understand, as you say, integration and interoperability is a very relevant aspect, as is user friendliness. And in that context, for the in-house lawyers, is there a function to communicate with the platform? Is there a chat function? Or how do you secure that there is a high fluidity of knowledge exchange?
We try to embed ourselves where the business is working. And so there's a platform, it's a chat functionality which you can interact with. That chat function sits alongside our contract reviews, for example. If you wanted to ask a specific question about a clause, you can drill in deeper. But that platform can be connected to email. The business don't have to have access to the platform, or you might be in a meeting and you want to forward in an NDA that's just come in, so that by the time you get back to your desk, the contract review's already been done. We connect to Slack for those that are using that, and that enables channels to be created, and Wordsmith sits in that Slack channel and can respond to those questions. We can also connect to Notion, Google Drive, etc. But the main forms of communication are email, platform chat, and Slack.
You spoke a lot about integration into other systems already. Would you say this is one of the strong points of Wordsmith's AI solutions, or more generally, what are the competitive edges that make Wordsmith AI's products stand out?
Absolutely. You touched on the integration aspect of it. So connecting where the business is and enabling the business to directly self-serve on email, Slack. We connect to Google Drive, SharePoint, Notion. You can set up on Wordsmith quite quickly, sort of seamless integration. And we hope that it's easy to use and intuitive. We work really hard to make sure that this is almost a consumer product. People will be used to apps that they use in their day-to-day life, and we want Wordsmith to be just like that. We focus on in-house teams, and we're very much a legal tool. I think lawyers are rightfully playing around with lots of different tools at the moment, but the legal specific tools, generally not just Wordsmith, I think really elevate the tools themselves and allow lawyers to use legal specific training and tools that are built specifically for lawyers. Our CEO is a lawyer and then became a CTO and a CPO. And actually the business is littered with lawyers, which is, I think, a good thing, definitely for me. But it means that the product is legal first. And so everything we do is, okay, well, how would a lawyer do this? For example, some of the engineers wanted to put a shortcut into one of the product development features. And we said, that's not going to work for lawyers because they just about got Control S probably, or Control C, Control V, but that's about it. And so we designed the product in that way. We ensure that the intelligence going into it is legal first so that it's accessible and useful as a tool for lawyers. So it's a legal built tool and we integrate into the business.
So it's legal first and it's AI native. And now just advertising it to different legal teams, do you see any relevant differentiation between types of legal teams, for example, coming from different industries, coming from technology industries, perhaps even AI industry, coming from traditional industries, or being smaller or being bigger? Are there any dividing lines between legal teams that make a difference for the application of your products?
No, in short, we work with sole legal counsels, we work with fractional GCs, but we also work with enterprise FTSE 100 companies. And the key difference is you can get going quite quickly on Wordsmith and you can use that as a sole individual contributor, or you can use it in a team where you can share chats with each other, you can work on playbooks together. It's designed so that it's very privacy focused, and so all the information is available for you, but if you choose to share it with team members, you can do. As regards sectors, we work with a range of sectors, and obviously all legal teams have common things that they're dealing with and they're grappling with: general contracts, queries, and legal issues, keeping up to date with the law. But as you say, there's different challenges for different teams. And so we're working with some large companies that have very complicated framework agreements with amendments, variations. They have back-to-back indemnities, collateral agreements. And we've been able to develop solutions with them to ensure that the AI can, for example, deal with the large context windows. They can deal with multi-document reviews, and the tools that someone might just want to use out of the box, which are quick NDA reviews, can be applied for more complicated agreement, which does require additional engineering and legal input. So we've got a legal engineering team here at Wordsmith that help customers along that journey.
Obviously, a lot of thinking goes into what in-house lawyers need and what they want, certainly as of today. But then I assume you also need to reflect on what they may need and want tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. How do you see the role of the in-house lawyer, of in-house teams, of in-house departments evolving over time, and what that actually means for a service provider like Wordsmith AI?
Yeah, and that's the exciting challenge, is the space is moving so quickly. So it's looking at what lawyers do now. It's challenging how they might do that, and is that the right way of doing it? I think if I explain to our engineers how lawyers mark up a document, taking in comments from different members of a firm, for example, you've got IP specialist comments, you've got data protection comments, and you actually just look at the comments and work out which ones should take priority. They find that bizarre, having worked in sort of GitHub where you're working live in a document. So we're constantly thinking about how we can make things better for the legal teams. I think fundamentally the role is the same. And I've got a self-interest in ensuring that AI doesn't remove the need for lawyers. And I think that our objective remains the same in an in-house lawyer: to advise the business, mitigate legal risks, and help the businesses grow. I think that AI being in our lives means that we can focus more on the strategic matters. The times where we just don't have the bandwidth to take the time to focus on these really important matters to enable the business to grow means that we have a bit more space to do that. The processes and legal ops will become more important for the role, because I think that if you take some time to put the processes in place, then you'll reap the benefits going forward. And again, you're removing the churn work, and not just from your own workload, but your team's workload as well. It means that your team aren't doing the same things each day. And ultimately, it just becomes more enjoyable for them because they're doing more interesting work and they have a bit more time. I also think the contracting tools mean that there's a lot more consistency across the teams, and a lot of companies, especially if they've got large volume of contracts that are of huge value, they'll often not look at immaterial contracts and take a view on small contracts. So I think AI being in the legal team means that actually you can reduce some of that risk. So I think it takes away some of the noise, some of the churn, some of the capacity bandwidth issues, allows the lawyers in the team to focus on what's really important, And actually, I think allows us to focus on the human aspect a bit more. So it means you don't have to be sat with your head in contracts for as long, but you can actually think about the points, the negotiation tactics, and speaking to the business partners to ensure that you're really aligned with their goals.
That makes total sense to me. So I understand you in a sense that whilst there may be no dramatic shift in the type of the work, there is an enormous speed up and efficiency gain of how work is actually done. And there may be some extra time to doing more fun stuff. Leading perhaps to the question of how that looks at the more junior end of the spectrum, because, well, much of that work that is now made speedier has traditionally been done by more junior people. How would you see the outlook of people just now coming into the legal profession? What advice would you give somebody who tries to find their way in this really new environment?
This is something I feel really passionately about. I was fortunate to have had brilliant training from a lot of the partners I was working from when I was at law firm, and then after that in-house worked with some fantastic lawyers. I think the responsibility is on the senior lawyers to take the time to explain legal concepts to junior members, but also for the junior lawyers out there, it's really to embrace the change, to ensure that you use the technology to become a better lawyer. So I think if I break this down, I always, when I'm talking to junior lawyers about, their role and what it looks like today, I think master the basics first. So first and foremost, AI amplifies your legal skills, but you're a lawyer. We have regulatory obligations to the SRA here in the UK. So it's making sure that you've got that solid legal reasoning, you have the attention to detail, and you're able to apply the professional judgment, and then you can overlay AI on top of that. I think being curious about technology will be a real asset to you. You don't need to pick up a coder, although I did dabble in this last summer, did a coding course. But I actually think understanding how the AI tools will make you more effective as a collaborator and user. And actually, I think they can use it as a superpower, because if you're ahead of time with AI, you can really feed into the team's development, and people who don't have experience with AI, you can really add value in those circumstances and bring a different perspective to some of those conversations. So stay curious about technology. Always make sure you're verifying everything. Everybody knows that the famous cases of the hallucinations in a courtroom, making sure that if you're using a legal tool, for example, you're able to go to the citations. But in the same way that I would always advise a junior lawyer who's looking at LexisNexis or practical law, if they've got a practice note, which might be brilliant, you still need to go to the underlying source. So always make sure that you continue to do that. And the good news is that AI helps you to get there faster. So that should be good. Gone are the days of going down to the library, hopefully. And then I think finally, just focusing on what makes you human. There are definite limitations to AI. And I think if you're able to use the AI, use your legal judgment, and then just making sure you're having conversations with people, understanding the business and applying that human element, I think you'll be in a really great shape to take your career forward.
Wow, that sounds almost like a formula, like legal first, supercharge it with AI, and keep the me space so that everybody really recognize your human input. With that, Lucy, that was terrific. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you everybody for joining. And I hope you will tune in again for the next edition of The Influencers, which will be coming up soon. Until then, take care. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to The Influencers Digital Transformation from Hogan Lovells. To explore more insights and resources on emerging technologies, visit digital-transformation-academy.com. Follow the podcast on your preferred platform to hear future episodes as soon as they're released.